American race. You don't get a name like that by chance. No, that's something you earn. Because this isn't just another race. It's a run at history.
This place is special, man. When you go through the tunnel here, it's some kind of vibe you get when you roll in for the first time.
20 years of trying, 20 years of frustration. Dale Earnhardt will come to the caution flag to win the Daytona 500.
The 98, obviously going to victory lane there was cool. I was a kid. I didn't know what I was experiencing at the time, but I knew it was such a happy time for everybody that was involved. I love this place. I mean, it's one of those places that adrenaline is filling you up from the time you enter the gate.
That's tough. I haven't had a whole lot of good moments down here myself, but I think just being in that first one was probably the best thing, the coolest thing I've done. Outside that, a lot of wrecking and disappointments, but I think just being here for that first one and just the experience of that, and coming down here for your first Daytona 500 it's a special thing.
For myself, was obviously last year. Being there at the end and just kind of making the wrong move on that last lap, coming out of 2 and dropping a few spots, but it was great missing those wrecks. But if it wasn't me personally, I would say watching Dale win his first Daytona 500. That was everybody kind of felt that little bit of special feeling that they had.
I think the obvious is obviously finished second in Daytona 500 2018, having a good run there, good speed weeks really. Don't really remember where we qualified, but finished third in the duels, got up to the front a little bit, fell back, got up to the front again, fell back, kind of like an accordion effect, but ended up coming out somewhat close to the front, almost on top, and reliving that moment is something you do kind of do every day and every race, really to bring back that excitement, that momentum. So we're definitely going to be riding that when it comes this Sunday for the Daytona 500.
The Daytona 500. This isn't just another race. It's a run at history. Sunday at 2:30 Eastern on Fox.
Give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire. Ooh.
All right, welcome back to the Balance. 1 hour in the books. My name is Don Marquisel, Presidente. Thank you, Matthew Embury, WSBT up in South Bend, our official IndyCar contributor, talking about some of the IndyCar funny seasons. And one of the things we talked about was a change to the purse. It increased by $2 million. A lot of enhancements out there at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. 30 new big viewing boards to help try to get information, predominantly information, but they're certainly able to view the race in all parts of the track, and a lot of enhancements going on there. We talked a lot about the drivers and what's going on there, and what we think, nothing official, but by process of elimination and using our noggins, we kind of think that James Hinchcliffe will end up in the Andretti stable for the Indianapolis 500. So we'll see how that plays out. And this last half hour, we're talking and breaking down MLB and the scandal with the Houston Astros and their quasi apology. Played a little bit of the press conference. We got a poll up on our social media on T-Balance. Go there and vote on our poll. Was it sufficient, or does more need to be done by the Houston Astros? But it is Daytona 500 weekend, and it is time to begin our talk with Daytona 500. Steve Wilson of the Speedway Digest, editor-in-chief of Speedway Digest, and in a few minutes, also Tony Donahue of the Tony D Podcast is going to be joining us to be talking NASCAR. Steve, Daytona weekend. I take it you're down in Daytona, correct?
Yes, I'm down here this weekend.
Fantastic! What a great truck race that was last night. Talk with us a little bit about that. Effinger has a nail biter of a win in the Gander trucks. Still trying to get used to saying that there in Daytona.
Yeah, it's a mouthful for sure. Try and get it all in there. I was just going to shorten it down to NASCAR Truck Series, and that way I don't try and mistake anything. Yeah. But yeah, last night it was all Grant Enfinger that there at the end of that race. He seemed to be able to just put that truck wherever he needed to go, and he had a lot of help from Todd Gillen, who had switched over to Ford this year from KBM that he was running with last year in Toyota. And Grant and him were able to make some moves, and Todd was able to get a lot of pushing out there and helping him out throughout those closing stages. Unfortunately, that kind of last wreck kind of put Gillen in a bad spot where he got caught up in somebody else's incident. He did end up with a good finish his own self, but he just wasn't able to get back up there and help as much as he had been in the earlier goings of the race. But it was a good race. There was a lot of those trucks were getting very, very dicey and twitchy there towards the end, but that's kind of the how it goes in some of these super speedway races. And these trucks, they're going out there and they're trying to get everything they can, and we saw multiple incidents throughout the night. And I think the one everybody's probably got in their head is Todd Majeski rolling on his roof and riding the roof all the way down in deep into turn one, and them having to get him out of that truck after it ended up like that, and just sitting on his roof, stopped there in turn one, and had a couple of big ones. Took out some very strong trucks. Red Rhodes was another guy that seemed to have a very strong truck there towards the through the middle part of the races. And Chris Deck is at the beginning of the race. He led a lot of laps his own self. So it's unfortunate for those guys, but it's super speedway racing, and really a lot of them say that their season starts next week when they get to Las Vegas.
Well, absolutely. NASCAR is here. It is ready to go. It's Daytona weekend all week. We've seen various different races from various different series. But last week we watched the Clash, if you will, the Busch Clash. They should have called it the Busch Crash. I don't think there was not any car, and I know we were texting back and forth. I mean, it was total mayhem. Fun to watch. Glad nobody was hurt, but man, did they destroy some cars and spend a lot of money last week at the Clash.
Yeah, you're right. At the end there's only about 5 or 6 cars out of the original 18 that started that thing. So many different wrecks, so many different torn-up race cars out that Joe Gibbs had even mentioned that he feels like he spent $1 million just to win a trophy. So, for them, that's a lot of carnage and a lot of cars. But I guess you can take solace in the fact that these cars are going to be obsolete at the end of the year, so they don't have to rebuild them. They can just junk these cars and be done with them.
Well, yeah, I guess that's the silver lining in the cloud, right? But let's talk a little bit about the duels on Thursday. Started off with a kind of a wet, rainy night, but it ended up a late night. I have to admit that I had to get up because I had a 9:30 meeting, so I didn't get to catch it all, but I caught the highlights. Joey Logano wins the duels. Give us a recap on the duels from Thursday night.
Yeah, Joey Logano went out there and, as you said, he won the first duel, and we all thought that Kevin Harvick was going to win the second duel, which, excuse me, that would have they would have been back-to-back winners, the first time that had happened since 1962. 1961 and 1962, respectively, Fireball Roberts and Joe Weatherly were the last ones to do that went back-to-back in the dual races, qualifying races for the Daytona 500. So, unfortunately, Kevin Harvick wasn't able to maintain that second one, and William Byron was able to eke that second one out there at the end.
Talking with Steve Wilson of Speedway Digest, how frustrating is it for Daniel Suarez not to be able to be in this year's Daytona 500?
I'm sure it's very frustrating for him, but the reality of it is that they didn't bring a strong enough car to begin with. They were way off the pace right from the get-go. Even on qualifying day, they seem to be way down. Typically these fields aren't spread out by, just a matter of just a couple of miles an hour. But that number 96 car that was brought down there, it just was very far off the pace on the speed board. So, while he, we even saw in the dual races where that car just wasn't able to get up to the front. There was a couple times where he was just barely in position to be able to make it into the Daytona 500 had it not been for that accident that took him out. But I think the Gaunt brothers and everybody will have to take this as an experience as to what they do next and make the needed changes so that they can make the races, because at this point they don't have a charter. They're out of all the races unless they can find a charter to buy, or they're just going to have to show up on speed and be able to do this thing in the few open spots that even are available anymore.
Yeah, and absolutely, you're right. They didn't bring a strong enough cars. But I tell you what, though, they're by the grace of God go I on some of these other cars. I mean, because you look at Blaney and LaJoy, all forced to backup cars, all of that, and then we saw the results of what happened last Saturday. Real quickly, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's just a product of the environment that the super speedway races are, and we for a long time there we had all kinds of rules that allowed teams to replace engines and do all kinds of crazy things between qualifying day and after the dual events into the Daytona 500. So I think when you look at Ryan Blaney's standpoint, that car was just wrecked beyond repair, and when you're talking about these aero races like this, there was just no way that car was going to be able to perform like it needed to perform. So, just any other race that for their situation, it's just like any other race where you wreck in qualifying or whatever practice, and you have to go to a backup car. So, hopefully, whatever they brought is their second car, or or whatever the case is that they brought back down here or repaired or whatever they did. Hopefully that second car is ready to go, and it seems to be, and what we've seen in practice, the practice yesterday, and I think for them they'll be okay.
Steve Wilson joins us live from Daytona, Florida, at the Daytona 500 of Speedway Digest, editor-in-chief, our official NASCAR contributor. We appreciate him joining us. Also joining us now, Tony Donahue of the Tony D podcast, part of the local media here in Indianapolis. And I know you've been around chasing race cars for a while here in Indianapolis. So what are your thoughts about the Daytona 500 this year?
Yeah, I'm sure you guys have touched on it. I mean, it's just an absolute crapshoot, and you've got to survive to get to the end to have a chance. I mean, we saw it in the truck race last night. There was guys up there that a lot of people probably never even heard of battling for the win. We'll probably see the same thing today in the Xfinity race. It's just kind of getting to that last, I would say, 15 laps unfazed. And really, you don't even have to be unfazed. I mean, we saw what Eric Jones did last week when he pulled in the victory circle in the Clash. He looked like Terry Labonte's banged up 1995 run in Bristol. So, yeah, you just really have to get to the end here. You can't make mistakes on pit road. But at Daytona, you can't lose a draft. And we're going to see tomorrow, we're going to see the Fords working together, the Toyotas working together, the Chevys working together. And when that happens, you gotta be careful, especially when these cars come on the pit road, as we saw in one of the duels where Daniel Suarez was eliminated and lost his chance to make the Daytona 500 because he was kind of sucked up in that pack of Fords, as you guys are just mentioning, and Ryan Blaney got into him and crashed, and that took him out of the Daytona 500. So communication is key here. Everything happens in a split second. It should be a good race. But, yeah, if you're asking me for a winner, I mean, put every name into a hat and pull one out, and you probably got a better chance than actually sitting down and trying to break this down.
As we saw last